Welcome to the 30-minute hour. It's the personal development podcast for entrepreneurs and executive leaders who are looking to level up and become unstoppable. I'm your host, Eric Twiggs, your procrastination prevention partner. Joining me as always, you know him as the super CEO, the business strategist extraordinaire, and all-around good guy, Ted Fells.
Happy Monday.
It is indeed a happy Monday. We're going to discuss an interesting topic today, Ted. It's may make some people uncomfortable, make them aware of something that they didn't know prior to listening or watching us. We're going to pose this question, and here it is. Is your business really a job in disguise? Yeah, man, it's going to get interesting. So, you know what, Ted, we just need to get right to it, and let's
jump right into it, Eric.
That's right. We're not going to belabor the point. We're just going to get right to it. Our guest is going to help you to answer that question and help you to get unstuck and really focus on the reasons that you like. I've never met anybody who, when they started a business, said, you know what, my goal for this business is I want to just work around the clock, not really have money, and not be available for my kids' events. That's what I want to accomplish out of my business. No one ever says that, right?
No.
But sometimes that's what ends up happening. So we're going to talk about how to get unstuck and what you can do to have the lifestyle that you desire. So let's go ahead and introduce him. So he is a serial entrepreneur. Since 1996, every single one of his many businesses has been in the service of fellow entrepreneurs for decades through structural mastermind groups and one-on-one coaching and consulting work. He's been helping entrepreneurs discover the core strengths in themselves and their business and realize their true potential, combining passion and expertise to grow their business and attain the freedom they desire. So please join me in welcoming to the show, Jeremy Shapiro.
Hey guys, thanks so much for inviting me on. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, welcome, man. Glad to have you on. So I'm curious. And first of all, let me just commend you for the fact that you spent all of this time, focusing. There's a lot of places you could have focused on with your vast experience, but you spent most of your time focusing on helping other entrepreneurs. Like how did this become your focus? This idea of helping other entrepreneurs get unstuck?
My very first businesses, this is going back to, high school times, were, really in the B2B space. I was helping out not just, businesses, but business owners. And all the businesses I've worked with since then have really been me working with the principal or the C-level exec in a smaller company, right? So these aren't your Fortune 50s. These are your everyday small business owners, up to your 7 or low 8-figure businesses. And what's great about that, at least for me, that I find so rewarding, is you're helping business owners find what I call that entrepreneurial freedom, that optionality, that choice in terms of how they spend their time. And that's impactful. You see the ways that they're able to then reallocate their time to give back in their community, be with their family, launch new businesses, focus on growing the business or pursuing hobbies, interests, or whatever else it is that's important to them. But the shift is that they now have a income producing asset of a business and not just that job that's, tapping them for 90 hours a week and paying them nothing.
I find, and Ted, please chime in, obviously, because you're the super CEO. You've had your business for 28 years plus. I think it's tempting to, get into a venture like your own business, kind of with rose-colored glasses, not really knowing what it really takes, and not really having that clear of a strategy. So, Jeremy, let's talk about that. What do you see as far as some of the entrepreneurs that you work with on that?
Yeah, so let me start with a little caveat, which is that entrepreneurship isn't for everyone. Despite what you might see online on the bookshelves, not everyone should be a business owner. It's really not for everyone. It's kind of for us select weirdos, right?
Hey, Jeremy, I have this saying, do you want your own business or do you want to make a lot of money? Right. You can make a lot of money working for someone else. You may not want your own business. So I hear exactly what you're saying.
You can do both, but
Yeah.
some folks end up in, one camp, the other, or neither. Right. So it really comes down to like I think exactly what you're saying there, Ted, is what is the goal you have? Right. And so some folks go out there and they hang their own shingle up because they like the work they do and just don't want to do it for someone else. And that's often where we end up with solopreneurs. They're really, attached to the work of the business, and they don't realize everything that goes along with owning a business that can drag them away from the work of the business. And that's how you end up with business owners who really are solopreneurs working a job, and they're really self-employed, and they get the worst of both worlds.
Wow. So if I'm hearing you correctly, so the solopreneur is really working in the business and just putting in the time, but the business owner, the true definition of a business owner is somebody that's working on the business.
Yeah. So here's the litmus test that I love to use with folks to figure out where they are, right? This isn't, a black and white A or B, like this is a gradient. There's space in between here, right? So the question that I like to pose is, if you stepped away from your business for a day, a week, a month, a quarter, and you came back, would your business be the same as when you left it? Better than when you left it? Or a dumpster fire and you're out of business? For so many business owners, it's that latter category. And that's when I would argue you're far more towards that self-employed side. And that's okay, so long as you know where you are, and the fact that there are many folks out there who own a business that can step away for weeks or a month or a quarter and come back to a business that's the same or better than when they left it. That's when you know you've really got a business.
Yeah. So just as far as from your background, you're a serial entrepreneur. You've had many, many businesses. Like, how long did it take you to get to the point where you were working on the business and not just stuck in the business?
Yeah, it's a really good question, right? Because like this timeline can vary the more experience you get, right? So as I've learned from my businesses over the years, when I launch a new business, I tighten that timeline up, right? The sooner we can get that plate spinning and get it to be an income producing asset, the better, right? But surely for, our listeners who are going out there with a first business or who have recently launched their only business, right? This might take some time. There's usually a few mental shifts you've got to get over to get out of that solopreneur mindset and into the mindset of a true business owner. And one of the most important, vital pieces there is the concept of having a team and letting other people do the work of the business so that you either can do the work on the business or so you can step away from the business for a short period of time. There's another business owner I know who works with, entrepreneurs around the globe. And, all the folks in that community, the question they use when they check in on each other is brilliant. It's one little question, but it sums up all of these other key performance indicators in one. And that question is, hey, how many weeks of vacation did you take last year? Well, here's what's beautiful about that question, right? At first pass, we think, oh, that just means like, how much vacation time were you able to get? But then you realize, no, that also means having the financial ability to travel for extended periods of time. And then you realize that also means having the people in the business to run the business while you're gone. And that also means having the systems in place for those people to run. So like all these different measures of success are rolled up into one question of how much time off were you able to take, right? And it's almost like a little bit of of an ego check and a little bit of bragging rights for what that number can be. And it's not a matter of saying how lazy am I or how uninterested am I? No, it's how much did I set my business up for success so it's not dependent upon me? Sometimes we do that intentionally, or I also know many folks who, for circumstances out of their control, ended up unable to work in their business. And what we don't want is the business to collapse just because we're by choice or by circumstance not involved in the business day to day.
Yeah, so because it sounds so common sense, Jeremy, right? You would think you'd want to be able to, go wherever you want to go. But what is it that keeps people stuck working in their business? What are the common things that you see?
Yeah, so on the mindset side, there's two major ones I see, right? One is the perfectionist mentality and thinking no one can do something as well as you can, right? So let's say you're a plumber working for a plumbing company and you decide you want to go out and do it on your own. And then you're afraid to hire anyone because you're worried that they won't be able to do the same quality of work that you can do. right? That's a really limiting mindset. It might be that you're a photographer and you worry about someone else coming into your studio and doing as good a job as you are. And so long as you think that no one can do the job better than you can, you're going to be stuck doing all the work. And that's going to prevent the scaling. The second smaller mindset, challenge that can be there is this fear for business owners that an employee is going to steal the whole business and launch a competing company across town and take all their business away. If someone how to do it, they're just going to put you out of business. Remember before we were saying how entrepreneurship isn't for everyone? Most folks would rather have a job and a paycheck and the benefits and the predictability that comes from working for you than launch their own business. And even if they do, they're going to face that same reality you faced when you launched your business of realizing all the things that go along with running a business beyond the technical work of the business. And then beyond that, whatever portion of the business you've taught them, that's not the entire business. That's their role in the business. So the likelihood of that happening is extremely low. Can it happen? Sure. Does it happen often? No. Right? So those two mindset things, realizing that other people can help you get the freedom you deserve from your business and that they're going to be grateful and happy and loyal for having a role within the company, right? Are two of those big changes that solopreneurs or smaller business owners can, shift and really see some great growth.
Jeremy, though, I hear you, but one of the biggest things is trust.
Yeah.
Right. It's almost like, you think about your kid, right? And you just don't trust them with any babysitter. Right. And that's kind of how it is with the business. It's like, okay, well, I'd like to go take off a month. Do I trust, that these guys are going to be able to take care of the baby, right? How, there's because, that's going to be the time when a challenge happens with a customer.
Yeah.
Right. There's going to be an issue or whatever, right? Like, are you comfortable going someplace where your connectivity may not be that great? Right. Or, hey, you guys, if you need to call me or I'm going to check in if necessary, right? Like you got to get to a point where you have that team in place, or at least that, I don't necessarily say a number two. I always say that 1A, right? That person that that you guys are kind of, in sync with how you deal with challenges, whether it's internal or customers and all that. And you can really know that that's somebody that, you can't have that person that is the hothead and something happens and he just goes off and just, well, we'll just end this agreement. No. That's, don't leave Doug, Eric. Doug is not the one that you want to leave in charge, because Doug is like, we don't need no, Doug, we do need their business. What are you talking about?
So, I love the analogy. The parallels between parenting and running a business are endless, right? We could talk for hours on just that, right? Sure. So, continuing that analogy, you wouldn't go on an international vacation without your kids and leave your kids with a babysitter who you'd never met before, right? Now, you probably would do that with a babysitter you'd known and worked with for years, or a family member who's trusted. So, right. Yeah, you don't step away from the business totally offline and unable to take care of things with someone you don't know or trust yet, right? You have that being your 1A, someone who's been with you a while, who knows how to run things and who you trust with it, for sure, right? There's a level of trust, right? So 2 quick stories on that. I think will illustrate this well. I had a client I was working with. He had a business, and his clients were like retail stores. They were clients of his that were using his company's products to take care of their people, their clients and customers who walk through the door, right? So if there was a problem with my client's product, his clients were offline and couldn't do business. That's really bad, right? So he was always chained to that phone, because if a customer called, he needs to be able to take care of whatever that need was and get them back online. Makes sense. We all have pride in our business and our brand name and our who we are tied up and all that. That's good, right? That's a great work ethic and great to have that, that personal brand. What that also meant is the thing he loved doing, going mountain biking, getting out in nature, where he would recharge, that was good for his mental wellness, his physical wellness and everything. He wasn't able to do that because that cell phone coverage you were talking about didn't exist in the mountains where he'd like to go mountain biking. So when we started working together, he was feeling really burnt out. because 24/7 he's chained to that phone in case something goes on. Well, like that's not that healthy, nor is that sustainable. So one of the first things we worked on was getting him, an outsourced full-time support person who during business hours, 40 hours a week, could answer those emails and answer those phone calls and take care of that tier 1 support and take care of most all customer needs, right? That suddenly freed him up to not be in the business all day, all night, every day, every night. He was able to use some of that time he got back and get back to nature, which was so good for not just his physical wellness, but his mental health as well.
Yeah.
He also got to use that time he got back to go out and sell and close new accounts. He got to work on product and grow the business. He did all the things that were the work on the business to grow it and take care of himself while someone else was on the front line who he trusted. Right. So that was huge for him. For myself personally, each time we've added a new member to the family, I've taken 3 months off. And that means like no emails, no Slack, no text messages, like none of it. Knowing my team is able to run things and make decisions, and I trust the decision they make. And if I've got a Doug who's going to say, you know what, we don't need your business, like that might not be great, right? But I've got to weigh that cost against being tied to the business for those months. So yeah, will a hire following a system perform the same level and do everything exactly how you might? No. And that's not realistic. But will they do a good enough job that it's worth that difference for you to be the one not involved in the day-to-day? Ideally, yes.
So hang on, Drew. I think I may be hearing things because I thought I heard you say that you've taken 3 months off at a time, totally unplugged.
Yeah.
In your business.
Correct. And then summer back, we took off 9 weeks. So it is absolutely possible to do that. And I encourage folks to create that space in their life.
That right there would be a big win for 99% of the people that are listening.
Start small. There are many business owners I talk with who haven't taken a week of vacation since they started their business, right? Like put the time on the calendar, get yourself, offline for a week or make it a 3-day weekend, right? Whatever that stretches for you that feels a little uncomfortable, carve that time on the calendar, because we all know that feeling of when a vacation or a trip is coming up. In those last few hours you're in office, you suddenly prioritize things real well, don't you? You make sure that whatever must get done gets done. But so many business owners are used to waking up and looking at the phone, going to the computer and just starting to deal with the endless fires that come with owning a business. Well, that's no way to grow a business. That's just treading water, right? So what we want to do is set up the systems and the people so we can truly step away for extended periods. Even if it's a 3-day weekend or a week, it means you have the systems and the people.
Great. Wow. So I think that sometimes, and I have a background in the automotive space, and what I've discovered is that sometimes when the owner is the best technician, that can be a disadvantage.
Yeah.
Because number one, sometimes that owner will use being a technician as their hiding place. It's not that they have to work on cars, but deep down they're afraid of taking that next step. So they're like, oh man, I'm so busy out here in the shop, when they could really get somebody else to do it, as opposed to somebody who, like myself, knows nothing about fixing cars per se, but will be forced to put the people around them and to scale the business so they don't have to be there. So share your thoughts on that.
Oh, so I love working with business owners who have zero technical knowledge about the business they run. Like I have clients who have software companies and they're not software people. They don't know how to touch any of it. And what I love about that is they are forced to bring in people to do the work of the business. The expertise they bring to the table is knowing how to run a business. And they can't fall into the trap of doing the work, right? So go into the automotive space for a moment, right? When you have a physical retail location, let's say it's a photography studio, auto repair shop, whatever. If you're there overseeing everything, doing the work of the business, that might be you as an employee in the business or you as a manager of a location. The moment you open up a second location, you start leaning on your systems. You can kind of bounce between two locations in the morning and the afternoon, whatever it is, right? And kind of catch things early, but you still are kind of stuck in the business. When you get that third location or beyond, that really stress tests your systems, because you are physically incapable of being in all of these places at once and catching every little thing as it happens. You're now trusting other people with the money. You're trusting other people with the clients, with the sales, with all of that. That's when you truly know you've got the right systems and the right people.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's the key, like you said, working on the business and not being stuck in the business and being able to scale. So let's talk about your book, your business growth playbook. Who is the target audience, and what specifically are they going to gain from reading it?
Yeah, so your business growth playbook is written for the business owner who has a business. They have a flow of customers coming in, but for whatever reason, what got them to where they are now isn't getting them to the growth that they deserve. And we all love that feeling of growth, of seeing new sales come in while we sleep, of, onboarding new clients, right? New orders going out. That's wonderful, that growth. But sometimes we see this growth comes in curves, and the top of that curve is where that S curve plateaus. And that doesn't feel good. The worst feeling is when you start to see the decline. So the question is, what are the proven tactics that we can apply to any of our businesses again and again that can get us back to growth? And so I found that I was going back to the same strategies again and again over the years in my own internal playbook up here to help businesses get back to growth. And so this is the culmination of almost 30 years of work of taking the actual tactics that have worked for businesses again and again and again. And it's a playbook. So you can crack into it, find a strategy you like, implement it. We talk about how to measure the impact of that. And then you can choose the next tactic and so on. And a lot of this comes down to what's called incremental gains, right? There's a coach for the British cycling team who put this process of incremental gains in place that I love, because before that, there was an almost century-old British cycling team that was like the worst in the world, right? They were one of the worst teams. I'm an avid cyclist, and so like this story is especially special to me. So when this new coach came in, he looked at all the little things they could do within the team to make a difference. Small differences. They're like, well, what if our cyclists wash their hands before they sit down for a meal? Would that reduce illness, which would keep them on their training plan much better and competing at a higher level? Maybe. Let's see, right? What if I love this one. What if we paint the inside of the van white? That way, if there's any dust, we'll see the dust and get rid of it, so dust doesn't get in the components and all the components work at their peak level. What if we tweak nutrition? All these little changes, right? It was about seeing little 1% improvements because those stack up over time, right? And so this is exactly what I talk about in the book with my FAQ formula. There's 3 levers you have in your business that if you improve your F, your A, your Q, whichever one you want to work on, as each of those improve, they're not additive, right? It's actually multiplicative, meaning 10% improvement in each is not 10 plus 10 plus 10. It's 110% times 110% times 110%. And that's really huge. And so this playbook is packed with the dozens and dozens of strategies I've used over the years with my clients and in my own businesses. And unlike many books that tell you about the what and the why, this is a tactical playbook that actually has the how. So you can go take this and implement it in your business.
Fantastic. And then we've got Loisy, who's commented, I agree with Jeremy.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you for commenting. Those of you watching us live, feel free to put questions or comments here in the comment section. So Jeremy, I'm curious. Share with us like a memorable success story. Maybe somebody who started with you that was just stuck in the business, didn't have money, and they went on to be one of your example clients that you always talk about.
Yeah. So when business owners usually find me, it's because they're stuck, right? They want to get back to growth. They want that breakthrough strategy so they can get back to scaling, right? So one moment that sticks out to me is I was sitting around the boardroom table in a mastermind group that I was facilitating, and we had 2 business owners with very different businesses, right? One had a brick and mortar retail store, and one had an e-commerce company. They sell in very different ways. They both seen success. They had cash flow. They had customers. They had gotten to the level they were at, but were now not growing the way they wanted to be growing. And so what I love is connecting the dots and helping with cross-pollination of ideas. And so in this particular case, the e-commerce store owner used email marketing very successfully. Every time they sent an email out, orders came in, right? They had an email list. They'd measure things like earnings per click, right? They would look at all the stats, their open rates, their click-through rates, all this stuff. The retail store owner didn't do any of that, but the retail store owner would use direct mail. They knew where to get a list and what to put in the mail and what to send out to folks to get new customers to come into a retail store who had never heard of the store or never been there before. So I facilitate this conversation, the right questions get asked, and we now have the cross-pollination of ideas. And so over the course of the next month, the retail store owner starts collecting email addresses from customers in store, starts sending out emails for Sirius for the first time ever, right? And is now reporting back stats on I sent out this many emails. Here are my open rates, my click rates. Here are my earnings per click, right? Talking like an e-commerce store owner for a traditional brick and mortar store. The e-commerce store owner now knew where to get lists, who could do printing, design, fulfillment, all that, got the vendor introductions, right? Was able to figure out what kind of offer to put in place, how to track the offer and all this, and started doing direct mail. So now this e-commerce store owner comes in, implementing all the best practices on direct mail, and is now talking about all the new business from new customers who never heard of the business before, who are now buying for the first time and now coming back as repeat customers. So simply by taking a strategy that's like outside your box, that is working well for others, and using those best practices, both business owners are able to get unstuck and back towards growth simply by adding a new channel in. Now, there's a ton of other stories we could talk about that have nothing to do with finding new customers, but are all around doing a lot more with the lead flow you already have and improving how much those customers spend with you and how often those same customers come back and buy from you again.
Yeah, it's the power in that is that I just think you're limited if you're just out here by yourself trying to figure something out. You can be the smartest guy or the smartest gal, person, female, and as long as you're trying to figure something out, and you can just spin your wheels forever. But then you can go to a meeting, you can work with someone like yourself, get into a mastermind group, and they're like, "Hey, what about this?" And it just takes you to the next level. It just speaks to the power of networking and plugging into someone who's been there and done that, and they have the results that you want.
One of the things that I always love is, and a personal value is the concept of Kaizen, this continuous never-ending improvement. And I find the business owners that I work the most successfully with are also lifelong learners. They're the folks who have bookshelves. They're the folks who buy books and read them and implement them. They sign up and go to conferences. They get coaches. They go to mastermind groups. They do all these things to expand their knowledge, because how can we expect to learn about the things we didn't even know about if we don't put ourselves out there in the stream of knowledge that exists? See, when we have a question, when there's something that we know we don't know, well, we search online for it. We ask around for it. We seek out answers, right? But when you don't know what you don't know, how are you supposed to know what those things are, right? So when you put yourself out there and read a book, right? Buy a course, get a coach, go to an event, attend a conference, any of these things, that's where you hear about and get exposure to the concepts that will really move the needle and can revolutionize your business that you never even knew existed.
Fantastic. So what's next on the horizon for you, Jeremy?
Yeah, so your business growth playbook is just getting out there, and this has been live only for days. We really haven't even announced it more widely. We're already #1 new release in marketing for small business, as well as in business strategy. We're already a #1 bestseller. We're already a bestseller on multiple categories on Amazon, which is really exciting. So the whole process I've used before launching the book to validate the idea, like any good business owner should do, is proven really fruitful. And so that's really exciting. So beyond this book, this will end up being book 2 in a 4-book series, which is pretty exciting. But right now, this is really about helping out all the new folks who are coming on board with that book, getting access to the resources and helping them to get unstuck and get back to growth.
Great. So now, so Jeremy, this next part of the show that we're about to do, this is actually Ted's favorite part of the show.
It is not, Jeremy.
He really just loves this part. It's called Write This Down. And so what we do is we each go around and we share at least one idea from today's episode that we feel the people need to write down so they can level up? So, Jeremy, you're the guest of honor. What do you think people need to write down from today's show?
Yeah, so a concept I cover early on in the book, and the introduction to the book that even covers all of this is available online. You can get the introduction for free and see exactly what we're talking about here. And that comes down to, well, can I share a quick story that sort of illustrates the point?
Go right ahead.
So there's a story I love about Hercules and the Wagoner, right? This is not a term we use these days, but a wagoner is like a guy who drives a wagon down the road, right? Imagine the wooden wagon, 2 oxen in front, and the guy that drives the oxen forward. So the wagoner's going down the road, and the wagon ends up off the road in a rut. This guy's literally stuck in a rut. So he steps his wagon and he, shakes his fist at the heavens. He's like, Hercules, please come save me. Do something, help me. So Hercules comes on down and says to the wagoner, well, what have you done? Did you urge your oxen? Ask the oxen to pull the cart out of the rut? Did you lean into the wagon with your shoulder and try and push it out? Did you do anything to solve this? Or are you just throwing your hands up saying, someone do something for me? Right. And so the wagoner sort of begrudgingly is like, okay. And leans into the wagon and urges the oxen forward. And what do you know? He gets himself literally out of the rut and he's back on his journey again. Right. So what I love about this story is this comes down to, all of us hit various ruts and bumps along the literal road in life. Right. And when we're feeling stuck and want to get back to growth, it's not about wishing or wanting. It's about doing and getting. So what can you do to take action? Your writer downer here is take action. Action gets results. If you have an idea, don't let it just simmer there as an idea. Figure out if you're going to do something with it or not. Block the time in your calendar to execute on the idea and do it. Whatever it is to work on your business, life, or so on, create the space, create the plan, and action it. That's how you'll get a result, and that's how you can get change.
It doesn't get more powerful than that. Action gets results.
100%.
Be sure you write that down. Jeremy, thank you for sharing that. All right, Ted.
The thing that resonated with me the most is just being able to be confident in your team so that you can step away, right? For however many days, because Jeremy, I'm that guy, right? I'm sitting there listening, I'm looking around, I'm like, he's talking about you, Ted, right? I'm that guy that it's hard to say, okay, you know what, I'm gonna pull away for a couple weeks, right? Now I do have some competent members of my team, right? But it's like, okay, Ted, maybe you have to, like you said, do a 3-day weekend or something. You got to take baby steps first with it, right? Because I think even if I came back and said, hey guys, I'm gonna be gone for a month, they're gonna be like, what? What's wrong with you? Are you okay? So taking some baby steps first, just to just kind of get used to stepping away and knowing that you got some good people that you can trust that have been there with you for a while, and they'll be okay. They may not do it the exact way that you do it, but they'll be okay. And that's something else. I got to a point, where you would, people, would CC you on an email that they sent to a client, and you'd be like, well, why did they say it that way? And then I'd catch myself like, does it really matter? That's just their style, right? I'm kind of right to the point in an email, Jeremy, where some other people, they kind of, they're all over the place. They're talking unicorns and bunny rabbits and all that. Right. I'm like, they don't have time for that. Get to the bottom. Get to the
We're
bottom.
Executors.
But it works. That customer may like unicorns and bunny rabbits.
Yeah.
So as long as they get the message across, it doesn't have to be Eric exact same way that you do it, right? But just kind of give some people some leeway to be able to communicate and just to be able to get the job done. So yeah, that's something I'm working on, Jeremy. So
you mentioned baby steps, Ted. Do you want to hear a quick story about baby steps?
Sure.
So when my wife and I found out that we were expecting, the about 6 months out from due date, we started sharing the news with folks. And I remember the phone call vividly with my team where I was sharing the news about, like, my wife and I, we're expecting our first baby. Now, one of the things that's always been important to me is surround yourself with people who are like more experienced than yourself. Hire people for roles who can do it better than you can. And so a lot of my team were parents who had kids and had been down this road before. And here I was, the inexperienced, about to be a new parent coming in. So I mentioned this news, and the first question they asked me is like, well, hey, Jeremy, like, how much time are you taking off? And I'll be honest, I hadn't really thought about it. I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, I figured like what you said, like, yeah, I'll be on emails. I'll be around, And they're like, no. You need to take some paternity time, take time off and be with your family. You should take like 3 months off. So, I sat with that for a second, and I'm like, all right. And they're like, so here's the deal. Here are the hires we need to make. Here are the systems we need. Here are the things that we don't know. And we basically had a 6-month runway to fill those little gap for the things that were still blocking on me. And that was a really good amount of lead time. And so by the time, I went to go offline, everything was in place with the right leadership, systems, people, and all of that. And so you can give yourself a runway. And when you know what that timeline is, then you can simply create the plan and then take action on the plan.
No, got it.
It's awesome. This is some great stuff. I mean, you're listening and watching now. You have a lot to write down. Oh, you've got a good pen. So my contribution for this, it reminds me, I'm aware of there's a business owner. This was years back, and his wife would take their son to the soccer games and soccer practice and all of that. And what was happening was the men were always asking his wife out on dates and trying to get her phone number and all of that, because they just assumed that she was single,
right? Because
he was never there. It's a true story. He was never there. They just assumed, since they never saw him, that she was single. And it gets to, this whole idea of going from a solopreneur to a business owner, that it's not just about you, right? Think about it, right? If you accomplish this, if you accomplish your transition of going from solopreneur to a true business owner, everybody around you benefits, right? Your employees a benefit. The business is making more money. You can pay them more. You can offer them more benefits. The quality of the customer service is probably going to improve, right? But your customers are going to benefit. Not only that, your family's going to benefit, because now you can go to little Johnny or little Jane's soccer games, and people are not asking your wife for the telephone number anymore.
Right. You can look at those other guys and go, don't come over here talking to Barbara. Don't come over here talking to Barbara.
Right.
It's a whole
so write this down. It's not about you. And if you think about it, it's kind of selfish if you don't try to make the transition, right? You're just thinking about yourself, but think about everybody else who can benefit. Just think if your business is at a place where you can unplug for 3 months and don't check email and don't check Slack or don't check any of the other platforms that you're on. How powerful is that? That's right. It's not about you. Write that down. All right.
Yeah, but you'll be calling somebody in the company and be like, hey, how's it going? It's funny. Just real quick, I remember I used to have an HR person, and she was like becoming like our vice president of operations, and she was about to have a child, and she was going to be taking off all this time. So we brought in another person that was going to kind of serve in, a role of kind of dealing with some of the things while she was out. And so I made sure we had a meeting with them. And so we had an understanding of everything. And you could just tell, I don't think she really liked the whole idea of this other person being in there. And so it's so funny. So while she was out, she was constantly calling the other people, trying to find out stuff. And then when she came back, the other person was showing value. So we was thinking, hey, this person could probably be, play another role. She did not want that person to be let's get her up out of here. I'm back. So it's just kind of funny when I think about it. She wanted to be away and take that time, but she did not want it to be, everybody to forget, she was the that person that, that was running that. So yeah, just interesting.
It's ownership mentality, which is wonderful for your team to have, right? But there's a certain point where, just like parenting, at some point you got to trust the kids are okay in what they're doing, and that at some point, they're able to, flap their wings and leave the nest safely, and that you've done a good job, right? You can't be there every second of every day for their entire life. So in the same way, the business, you've built a beautiful thing, you do all the things right, you don't eliminate risk, you reduce risk as much as possible.
Absolutely. Thank you,
That's
Jeremy.
very well. That's a takeaway right there. You don't eliminate the risk; you reduce it as much as possible. Somebody needs to write that down too.
And great show, Jeremy. Thank you.
I'm telling you. So Jeremy, so people are now chomping at the bit. Right? They want to know.
They're like, hey.
Right. That's right.
I'm saying they're like
literally chomping. They're doing just like you did, Jeremy.
That's it.
So what's the best way that people can get a copy of the book?
Yeah. So if you head to yourbusinessgrowthplaybook.com, you'll find out more about the book there. You can get your copy of the book. You can get the intro to the book, but everything is all over at yourbusinessgrowthplaybook.com.
Yourbusinessgrowthplaybook.com. And we'll put that in the comments section and show notes and all that good stuff as well. All right. This has been a great episode. Again, this is just another one of those episodes where I'm going to have to go back when I'm not hosting. Right. And like maybe I'm on the treadmill and I can actually go in and listen and really absorb some of these great takeaways that Jeremy has shared with us. So Jeremy, thank you for sharing everything that you shared with us on this episode. And speaking of sharing, those of you watching or listening, don't forget to share the show.
Share the show.
That's right. Don't keep this great information to yourself. And also keep in mind that you can also listen to the 30-Minute Hour podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any of those podcasting platforms. Make sure that you subscribe or follow the show. That way you never miss a future episode. So that's our time on this week for the 30-Minute Hour podcast. And as we sign off, please remember to never allow perfect to become the enemy of progress. Have a great one.